the current focus is the same as always has been to promote and to represent the rubber industry in Germany in front of political and other stakeholders in the industry, be that other bigger associations, be that the vehicle manufacturers, for example, because 70% of our members deliver products to the vehicle industry. Of course, the tire members and the tire companies are the largest contributors to the vehicle industry. But if you look at a vehicle, half of the weight of rubber is tire, and the other half, at least in conventional ICE vehicles today, in combustion engine vehicles, is also rubber products, because you have hoses, you have conveyor belts, you have belts, you have all kinds of rubber products. So we are really driven by the vehicle industry, of course, but also anything else that has to do with rubber, be it healthcare, consumer products, water, baking, whatever you can think of. Wherever there's rubber, those companies that produce rubbers are a member within our association. I think the challenge is that basically all industry in Europe has at the moment. It's of course the high prices for energy. In Germany especially, because we have very high prices for energy, be that electric energy, be that gas or oil, or any fuel source or heat source. That's of course one of the major problems, I'd say, or one of the major factors for prices. The regulation and the overregulation is, let's say, something that concerns us very much, and we see more and more regulation coming up to, especially small and medium enterprises struggle, of course, if they have, I don't know, 10, 15 regulations they have to comply to, and then they have to do reportings on that. So if, just as an example, today we have a due diligence law in Germany on supply chain due diligence law in Germany. We have a European due diligence supply chain law. We have the anti-deforestation regulation called EUDR, and all those are superposed and will demand or will ask for a certain reporting from the enterprises, which is difficult to meet. And on top of that, of course, other regulations that come and that are already in place and that are enforced and that might multiply in the next years. And that's a big problem especially for small enterprises. Well, of course, we're politically involved. That means any discussion that happens on those regulations, we try to be in place or try to be in contact with the regulators. A lot of the regulation happens at European level. So of course, with our European association, we collaborate. We do the national lobbying for the industry. But it's a complex system of Europe and national political stakeholders that have to be talked to, that have to be contacted, because you have different authorities at European level that which you can contact either from national level or from European level. So I think it's a big team effort with the European associations and with the national associations to contact the right political stakeholders and to get our knowledge and our point of view in the discussion and in the ring, and make sure that we're heard, because as we say, nothing works without rubber. So the more you regulate, the more difficult it will be to produce these products in Europe, and producing them somewhere else in the world, well, has different regulation, but then they have to enter the market and have to be approved. So if you do it right and you do it on site, that's the best thing you can do, especially in times when we're talking about sustainability and carbon footprint and all these kinds of discussions. Germany is an exporting nation, so we produce, of course, for domestic industry, but also worldwide. I think most companies are situated in Germany. We have a lot of still owner-based or owner-run companies or SMEs. They, of course, if you're with the vehicle industry, you have to, of course, be with the customer. So the customer asks you to go somewhere where he will build a plant to follow him. So that, of course, is one of the points. but we still have a lot of domestic production, and that's what I think that's one of the assets we have as a rubber industry, and want to keep that because it's important.
What about the?
Well, we try to protect them through the regulations we have, of course, but the regulation is only as good as the market surveillance, and that's I think one of the main issues we have to tackle in Europe and in Germany is market surveillance, because you have regulations that regulate contents, chemical contents of products, specificities of products. All that is in place, and but if you don't have a market surveillance, these products will enter the market without having to. They try to comply or they don't comply, but if you don't know it, you can't be sure that they do.
Right.
I try to compare it. If you have a speed limit somewhere and you know that there's no speed camera, will you take the speed limit? If you're an honest person, yes, you will. But if you're not, well, you'll go a higher speed, and if you know that you won't be fined, well, and that's the same thing we have, the same problem we have in Europe or in Germany with market surveillance, because we don't need more regulation, we need more surveillance, and we're all pro surveillance. We want market surveillance. That's why we have collaborations also with market surveillance agency. To inform them, to give them the necessary input, to give them the necessary technical background to be able to do their job well and better, if possible, and do more surveillance. We have tackled that issue already years ago. I mean, when the dynamic of electric vehicles was already taking speed, we know that these rubber products will of course eventually disappear. We try to inform our members and to make them aware that this development is happening, and that they should also focus on other products that they might integrate to vehicles. I mean, we try to deliver high-end products. So if you have less material to put in a more high-end application, you might have a success with your company. Let's say, if beforehand you made hoses and you made, 5 kilos of hoses for a vehicle, that gave you a certain revenue. If in future you have, sealings for batteries, that might be more high end, but less product to sell, that might give you a better revenue and a better margin on what you sell. But that every company has to see that on its own. We of course try to inform as much as possible on the developments. It's the political and economical representation. So it's we, especially SMEs. I mean, they don't have the means to go and see politicians to act on laws, on bills that are to be passed. So we see them, we see what's coming up, and that's what we try to, of course, look in advance what this will mean for the companies. We'll inform them, we'll keep them informed, especially like the anti-deforestation law that has been passed. A lot of companies haven't had that on their radar for quite a while, even though we had informed them, but we keep informing and try to lobby as best as possible for the members to make sure that they can continue producing, because they do everything in the right way, but the burden that comes with the reporting scheme is often so high that it's difficult. So what we do is we write guidelines for the members. We don't give trainings, but we write guidelines to give them the possibility to easily comply with those regulations, and to explain how this regulation will impact them, and what the outcome and what the results might be for these companies. Well, we were the first in the rubber industry worldwide to have a sustainability charter. We put this up in 2014. So 10 years ago, we already had the first sustainability charter, which all the members signed, in which a few months later, we added a sustainability reporting guideline to show the members how can they do a sustainability reporting, and what does sustainability mean, that it's more than just a carbon footprint or to have a green production, but sustainability means everything from your buying process, from your employment process, to what do you want to be, where do you want to stand, and where do you want to go, and where do you want to be in the future, also financially. That was something we brought on very early, and we've kept evolving this reporting guideline to show the members what they can do to be sustainable, and also had a best practice guide. So companies and members that had best practices on the sustainability side could report, and we made a leaflet or a bigger put together all those best practices for others to share and for others to take it up and say, okay, that could be a way forward to be more sustainable, to have a better carbon footprint, or to be this or that on the sustainability side. And I'd like to differentiate a bit on of course, it's dumping tires somewhere in the world is not something we should do, and it's not something we stand for. That's why we also created this the Azur network, this kind of network for the future of tires, the future of mobility as well. Because we want, and that's the goal we have with this network, is to recycle 100% of the tires that are used in Germany and that come to the end of their life in Germany. That's the idea. We don't want to export. We can export to other countries where we know that they will be treated in a correct way. But the idea is not to just take the tires and dump them somewhere to, I don't know, send them to countries where they will be either incinerated or they will be perhaps pyrolyzed, but not in the correct way and not in an environmental friendly way. So the idea is to promote a network and to get all the actors together, and that's what we do with Azur. You've probably seen our booth, and try to get everybody to adhere to the idea that we can collect everything, we can process everything we can collect. Because today, we've been, and as an association, we've been doing more or less the arisings for end-of-life tires for the last 20 years, and we've seen that we come from about 50% of recycling, and today we're almost at 2/3 of recycling. Recycling means we take the tires back, we sell those, or those that are still usable are resold. We tread the carcasses that can be retreaded, and we granulate what is granulatable, and we make a lot of products, and we make pretty good products out of these end-of-life tires. So. And of course, those that cannot be recycled then go to cement kilns, often for incineration, because some of the products are not recyclable, or when they come to at the end of a second or third life and are not usable. So the idea is to have basically a closed loop of 100% tires that stay in Germany and stay in Europe at the end of their life. That's the goal of Azur. I know it's a very bold goal, but I think we'll achieve that at a certain point in time. And if you look here at the Tyre Tech, all the presentations that have been given in the last 1.5 days, or yesterday and today, it's all about the circular economy, the circularity of tires. And I think we're really moving ahead on this topic. I don't know if you remember, I think 5 years ago, or a bit more than 5 years ago, sustainability was in one of the small rooms. It was an afternoon where we talked a bit about circularity and sustainability. Today, it's a 1.5 day stream in one of the biggest rooms here, in one of the biggest auditoriums. You see that the topic has gained so much weight and has gained so much popularity that I think we look into a good future in what tire recycling is concerned. It's going to impact, yes. It will be difficult because today we don't know how this reporting scheme will work 100%, and it will be in effect at the end of the year. So that means we have half a year to more or less comply to that regulation at a certain point in time. We have other regulations that are coming up. You know perhaps that Euro 7, the emission regulation, now integrates also brake, dust and tire abrasion. So ETRTO, the European Tire and Rim Technical Organization, has been working for several years now to establish a test for tire abrasion, which has been done in conjunction with the UN Economic Council for Europe to put that in a regulation as well. So, we're doing everything, say, to comply, and we want to be in the regulation, and we want to be regulated, but if there's a regulation, we want to make sure that we can comply to that regulation, that it is done on a factual basis and on a scientific basis, and not just regulation for regulation's sake. And it also, and that's one of the things, it has to be surveyable. So any regulation that comes, we need to know that there can be a market surveillance, and that market surveillance is possible because, as I said before, a regulation is not good if there's no check and balances at the end. Make sure that the products that we produce in Europe are compliant, and others that are not compliant still can come on the market and, let's say, take market shares from the good producers. in being specific, in having the right products at the right time for the right application, with high quality. And I think that's the only, at least in my opinion, I'm not talking for our members, I'm not talking for the association here, but I think if you have the right product with the right quality to convince the customer, whoever that customer is, be that an end customer, be that your customer that integrates the rubber product in a final product, I think if you're compliant to the regulation seeks market surveillance to keep, let's say, the bad products or the black sheeps off the market, and the end consumer values what you do, and I think that's a question of communication in the end, and that's a problem we always had. I mean, if you look at the tire industry, that was a problem. Always, a tire is not an interesting product. So you of course you can reach a certain number of customers, but it's all in the end it's all about communication to show that your product is better, has a better carbon footprint. And I think today the green approach is something with which you will be able to convince certain more customers perhaps to buy your higher grade products than the cheap products that flood the market and that are not meant to stay on the market, but are just put there to make business, but are not sustainable in the end, where you have a planned obsolescence of the products more or less integrated in the product, because it will break in a month, or it will break in a year, or it will break in 2 years, whereas if you have a high-end product that will guarantee you a lifetime of service and trust in say in your, be that in your vehicle or be whatever what you have and what you're doing.